medicine, THC.
Time counts to 5. Wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind.
Huge things that happen with children that they've been shown to severely mitigate with edible marijuana.
So I have to push back on you a little bit. CBD has been shown to reduce seizures in children with epilepsy. It's FDA approved.
They have a good friend who has a child who uses it on, and he showed it's a career changer.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to hear the substance. I had a patient 4 or 5 years ago, and she's 20 years old. She couldn't drive the car because she had seizures, right? So you can imagine being 20 years old, not being able to drive the car, all the things are driving around. So she uses a little bit of CBD, not even every day. She's never had a seizure since, and now she doesn't drive the car.
We're talking about CBD, he's talking about THC.
So you're talking about okay, and I'm not saying that situation I'm saying it's not real, but I'm saying that they're using it the way we know whether a chemical compound, whatever that compound, the best way to know it is you give the real medicine to one people and you give the placebo to the other. And you see the changes in those people over time. And you find out whether or not your theory of whether this works on a population level basis is real or not. That is at the core of medical science. And we basically found that rule out for THC.
Well, that's not entirely right. We know that there were studies that were run during the Nixon administration that show the efficacy of marijuana and the safety of it, no flaws. And you also, I'm sure you know, when we're talking about marijuana, you talk about something that's federally legal. It's not something that's easy to run FDA studies on.
Yes, and I do that, and I say at the end of the book, I think we should write that interest in researching
Hiyo, Zabi moro. Hiyo, Zabi moro. I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. Wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind.
Again, there's negative in what way? Can you cite the study? There that they, again, work, that the drug work on cancer, on
I was seeing, you're throwing a few different things out there, and I appreciate the fact that you go on and say things like, right? But, I've done videos recently stating that. And then specifically, if you look at specific cancers, studies have shown that THC and CBD help. And we're specifically talking about breast cancer, and did a video on this recently. HER2 positive. And THC and CBD, it can in fact
What? What? This thing actually let me check my black open.
There's different types of breast cancer.
I wake up in the morning and I got murder on my mind.
Breast cancers which do not express cannabinoid receptors. And I've seen one study, at least, again, it's only one study that showed that when they gave THC in that animal model, it actually caused a proliferation of tumors, so it worsened them. So, I do agree with you, Alex, in the fact that, we have to be careful about using, terms like that. But that just doesn't mean that we can't say that cannabis is no good for cancer at all. And I mean, even in the National Academies of Science and Engineering report, they said that cancer was great for chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, right? So, it's definitely a really good, medicine for, a lot of different things. And when we're talking about THC, you know, I said earlier, of course, we need to be careful about THC, but it definitely is still a medicine. And you know, to your point with regards to you know, it not being a medicine, say for something like PTSD, you know, I come from it from a clinician's point of view. So I'm not a researcher. So I need to make sure that my patients are getting better. It's very frustrating for me just to say to someone, "Oh, there's nothing I can do for it. There's nothing I can do for it." You know, so, and I understand that, you know, doing something sometimes is not going to be beneficial just because you're doing something. You have to do something that actually works. But, you know, we do have epidemiological studies, and we have other studies that have shown that, you know, when patients are given cannabis, it can reduce their symptoms of PTSD. There's also another study, you know, I don't use this drug too often, called Nabilone. So Nabilone is just pure THC. Nabilone was shown to reduce nightmares in people who have PTSD. So, you know, it's just saying, just because THC is psychoactive doesn't mean that it's not a medicine. And just to keep on the topic of PTSD, in addition to that, we've identified mechanisms of action. I know there's one study, I think Matt Hill was one of the authors of that study, and he noted that in people who have PTSD, there's an over 50% decrease.
I was locked up on Christmas. Ain't get to see my niggas. Ain't get to hug my mama. Couldn't even give her no kisses. Can't even post on my Instagram. Could he pussy nigga be snitching? Everybody acting suspicious. Might probably say that I'm tripping. When I'm all alone in my jail cell, I tend to get in my feelings. And all I smoke is that loud. Don't pass me no midget. And I'ma smoke all of my pain away. That's the only thing that gon' heal it. I don't understand you women. Go around pretending. That's it, they really
What's good, man?
so I love them all but
It's just a bit.
Wake up in the morning, I got AK-47.
I got murder on my mind. I got it's a homicide. Murder on my mind.
じゃんけんグー
爆動の81本気でいくぞランク君ごときに栄称は不要待たせたねやっとけとっておきってやつだ勝てると思ってたかこれで最後だカムイベキ面白い体験悪いが一瞬で終わらせてもらう爆動の80シューケンこれでどうだランク君との栄称は不要絶望するがいい黒
Are you dumb? I got murder on my mind. I got murder on my mind. I got murder on my mind. Around this body is a fucking homicide. In the died. He said he was afraid to die. Say goodbye. Tie my arms, still on his shirt. Wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. 47, 9, mind. I got murder on my mind.
off on Christmas. Ain't get to see my niggas. Ain't get to hold my mama. Couldn't even give her no kisses. Can't even post on my Instagram. Cause pussy nigga be snitching. Everybody acting suspicious. Might probably say that I'm tripping. When I'm hard over in my jail cell, like tend to get in my feelings. And all I smoke is that loud. Don't pass me no midget. And I'ma smoke all of my pain away. Cause that's the only thing that gon' heal it. I don't understand you women who go around pretending. They say they really fuck with me. So I love them all from a distance. Cause the same bitch said she down to ride. Be the main one who trickin'. Got my niggas with promethazine. Cause every time I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. AK-47s, Mac 11, Glocks and 9s, and all these pussy niggas hating, trying to knock me off my grind. But I can't let them do it. I got murder on my mind, bitch. I got murder on my mind, bitch. I got murder on my mind. I got murder on my mind.
I got murder on my mind. I got murder on my mind. Yellow tape around his body is a fucking homicide. The shooter, he just caught me by surprise. To the floor now. Wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. 47, 9 o'clock tonight. On my grind. They're on my mind, see, I got murder on my mind. You off my grind. I got murder on my mind.
In levels of anandamide. So
naturally occurring
cannabinoid, which is naturally occurring endocannabinoid, correct. So you can get that through exercise, which is one excellent way to do it. And that's part of the high that you get when after the exercise. But the other way you can get it is by using cannabis. So when THC attaches to those CB1 receptors, you get a release of anandamide. And
get Bohemian Rhapsody on Blu-ray today.
Cannabidiol can actually increase anandamide by another mechanism of action as well. So, there's different ways where we can raise a level of efficiency. So, to me, as a clinician, if I have someone who is not doing very well, they've been on a bunch of different medications, I've identified that they have PTSD, we have mechanisms of action, we have studies, and then again too, don't discount my clinical experience, right? I've been working for over 5 years, just with cannabis. I mean, I do other medicines, I don't prescribe other medicines as well, but I've been doing cannabis medicine for over 5 years, and there's a lot that I've learned, right? So as much as I've learned, from reading studies, and from doing the conferences and things like that, for sure, the best resource as a clinician is to learn from your patients and hear what your patients tell me. And the things that my patients tell me is that THC is really effective for the sleep apnea. And a lot of my patients, especially my veteran patients, have done really, really well with that. And just one further point too, I know it was in 2015, I think it was, there was a meta-analysis done, I can pull it up if we need to, that indicated that a lot of medicines that are being used now for PTSD are just simply ineffective. And the other thing too is that there's never been a medicine made specifically for or PTSD. So all the medicines that people are using for anxiety, for depression, for insomnia, for something else, you know, but when you look at the study, it says people with PTSD have a lower level of anandamide, and if you can increase that level of anandamide, you know, that's a good way to treat someone. It doesn't matter whether it's a hormone, whether it's a hormone, as long as you are correcting a deficiency, you're generally going to get excellent clinical results.
So, sort of try to frame this differently. Alcohol reduces blood alcohol generally tends to reduce cardiovascular events. And during Prohibition, you could actually get a doctor's note for alcohol as a medicine. But alcohol is not a medicine. Okay? It's a recreational drug. It has some positive biological qualities and some negative biological qualities. And, you know, there was an argument, I think, 10 to 20 years ago, should we recommend that people drink moderately, 1 to 2 drinks a day? And I think for the most part, the medical profession has come down on the side saying, let's not do that. There's too many non-cardiac negative side effects with alcohol.
Just on that note though, Alex, in Canada right now, I know the safe alcohol
Yellow tape around his body, it's the fucking homicide. Yellow tape around his body, it's the fucking homicide. Yellow tape around his body, it's the fucking homicide. He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die.
終わってもいい。だからありだけを。さあ小悪じゃんけんグー。
爆動の白州君の栄翔は不要。絶望するがいい。波動の90黒棺。爆動の81ランク。逃げられない。君ごとに痛いか。弱いも遅すぎ。爆弾やるじゃないか。生意気な。弱い遅すぎ。見えるか。やるな。やるな。くだらん。絶対に逃がさん。痛いか。おっあまり面倒をかけさせない。波動の99五流天滅。君ごときがこの私に二度も爆動の81。君ごときの栄翔は不要だ。任務完了だ。
Yellow tape around his body, it's a fucking homicide. He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die. He looked me in my... I got murder on my mind. I got murder on my mind. Yellow tape around this. Yeah, it's a fucking homicide. He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die. He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die. I got murder.
やあ、あばらいレンジ6番隊の諸君は即再開。なめやがって。見えるか。お待たせ。弱いの。
変われレンジ。次の前ハクレン。
なめやがって。おっとし。ほらほら待たせたね。飛べ。
お待たせ。変われレンジ。お待たせ。
Yellow tape around his body.
もうこれで終わってもいい。だからありったけを。
じゃあ。
じゃんけん。
爆動の81。
変われレイジ。
栄翔は不要だ。分かった。絶望するがいい。波動の9。黒棺。まだだ。
変われレンジ。心してみよう。挽回発火の咎め。
なんだと力よ。爆動の80。爆動の80。君ごときに栄翔は不要だ。絶望するがいい。波動の9。黒棺。面白い。爆動の81。ランク。弱い。くだらない。くだらない。どうか弱い。待たせたな。耐えられる。屈したまえ。何回そうザビマン。
Looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die. Do I need that shit tomorrow?
Are 14 drinks a week for men and 9 drinks a week for women. So, you know, basically two a day for men, 1.5 for women.
Right. So you're saying, okay, like we don't see huge negative consequences at that level. Okay, that's fine. Like, that's a totally reasonable way to think about alcohol. But what we're not saying, people, is this is a medicine, and I think that's where the confusion around really around high THC cannabis lies. And again, I don't mean to say that your friend's child is not benefiting. If you say he or she's benefiting, I believe you. What I'm saying is that that's not good enough for science. We need randomized controlled trials. And when those trials have been done, and a lot of them have been done, they've almost unequivocally shown that cannabis doesn't work as a medicine. The only actual place where beyond these sort of very limited conditions like chemotherapy, which got associated nausea, obviously it's terrible for people isn't that common. Cannabis has been shown to work as a pain reliever, right? Probably through the same reason that alcohol reliever, so it dulls your awareness from the pain. But even in that study, or in those even in those studies, they're mostly done against placebo, not against opioids or against NSAIDs. And there was a very big study for cannabis use in chronic pain over a multi-year period in Australia that came out last year that showed that people who used cannabis had more pain and used more opioids at the end of 4 years than people who didn't. We're always arguing about what medicine is.
Yeah, that study though had a lot of flaws in it. And the other thing is that you need to look at someone who is already using cannabis versus someone who is just using opioids. So if someone is just using opioids and they want to come off cannabis, there's multiple come off opiates with cannabis. Multiple studies have shown that can be effective, and that's not what was done in the Australian study that we were referring to.
Right, it's a more naturalistic.
Right, and also too, they didn't have access to medical marijuana during the whole time. Right. Those are all self-reported, and they were getting it from recreational sources. They weren't getting it from. That's a big distinction. Alex. Like they weren't getting it from a doctor who prescribed it to them. This was a self-reported study, and people were getting cannabis that they didn't really know what they were getting. It wasn't. They weren't getting any information from the doctor, and that's why it's a medicine, Alex, because you can tell someone, you can tell a patient to take a certain amount of CBD every single day, and when you take a certain amount every single day, it can reduce your symptoms, and sometimes you need to increase that, and sometimes you need to decrease that. You do that with all medicine.
We should be really clear about the distinction between CBD and marijuana. I mean, we're really talking about the psychoactive version of it, and this is where you're saying it's negative. You're not really arguing that CBD is negative.
And I think Dr. Hart is talking about using this as a medicine. Certainly using the CBD. He's titrating his patients. He's monitoring them. He's not writing them an authorization and saying come back in a year or whatever. He's being a physician. And I think to the extent that marijuana is medicine, we want people like him.
So you admit it's medicine?
No, I don't admit that.
But you just said that.
I don't think I just said that. I think I said to the extent I'm trying to meet you halfway, but I'll stop doing that. But I think you said something else that was really interesting to me, and this came up in the book. So you're a clinician, you see stuff, and it's funny. My wife's a doctor too. She's a psychiatrist. But my wife is a forensic psychiatrist, less than a clinician these days. Her job is to evaluate people, not to treat people. Your job is to treat people. You see sick people, you want to help them get better. And you don't want to say there's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing, there's no hope for your pain, no hope for your PTSD. You want to help them, and I totally get that. But if you're an epidemiologist or a researcher who's trying to guide, the views and medical practice of hundreds of thousands of doctors, that's not good enough. You need to step back. And I think this epidemiologist in Britain who I talked to with me, he said, I try not to draw conclusions because so often when I try to draw them, I'm wrong.
Yeah, and we need to be, careful. Right, and Alex, one thing that was mentioned in your book, is that you often cite the National Academies of Science and Engineering, right? But Ziva Cooper, she's a member of that committee. I mean, she put out on her Twitter. I mean, you can go to it. It's from January 9th of 2019. She says, in response to the recent New York Times editorial on cannabis, and as a committee member,
which by the way, that came.
Let me finish.
Just trying to give people context of where it came from.
Right, but this is someone you cited.
No, I didn't cite her. I cited the.
Okay, you cited the report, and she's a member of that. Okay, so she said in response to the recent New York Times editorial on cannabis as a committee member on NACI, which is that committee, and cannabinoids report, we did not conclude that cannabis causes schizophrenia. Then, the Drug Alliance policy also said the report did not reach that conclusion. So, those are pretty two authoritative, sources that are saying that, in your book, you didn't cite the research properly, right? And then also, they're saying that you left a lot out, right? They said that they had found an association between marijuana use and improved cognitive outcomes in individuals with psychotic disorders. That's straight from the same report, and, you failed to mention that, right? So I think that, when we're writing books or when we're giving out information, you want to do it from a balanced approach, and you don't want to just select the small amount of material that's just going to support your study. We want to be truthful here. Joe's show is always been very truthful. Joe said right at the beginning that cannabis is perfect for everyone. And I don't think that either. In Canada, we have really strict guidelines to follow. Basically, no one prescribes THC to anyone under the age of 25. And all the conferences and stuff that I go to, you don't really have too many discussions about it. Like, the doctors don't really have any backlash about that. So
why is the distinction 25? What is the subdivision?
So 25 basically is when your brain is fully developed. And we do look at the studies that do show an association between cannabis and psychosis. It's almost all in adolescence. I think that Alex only has one study in his book that shows an extremely weak correlation between an adult using cannabis and then developing any type of mental illness later. So 25 is a good age, but it's definitely kind of a conservative-ish age. But it's something that we follow, and I think that we've done well with that in Canada.
So Alex, why did you leave those conclusions on
So
the
I need to put that.
Okay.
So the National Academy of Medicine report. Ziva Cooper is the one who publicly said the report said this. But I think that we should emphasize that it also said this. Okay. What I wrote in that op-ed, book, is the plain language of the report. And the language is this. Cannabis use is associated with the risk of developing schizophrenia. Remember that that's what. And by the way, the committee was very clear. They separated depression. They said depression is nearly as high risk of depression as psychosis. Even though, by the way, just today, Jen, a psychiatrist, not an American psychiatrist, put out a meta-analysis showing that cannabis is associated with depression and suicidal and actually suicide attempts at a period of time. This literally released today. But to go back, Ziva is one of 16 members of the committee. So if you're going to say that I misquoted the report, which I didn't quote it entirely accurately, you need to say, well, why aren't the other 15 members of that committee? Why is one person who worked for the Cannabis Research Initiative at UCLA, which takes money from cannabis investors and users? She's the one who said that I misquoted. Maybe we should ask why the other members of the committee are not speaking against my statement.
Well, I think that she was just one of the 16 members that came out, but you can't really expect all the other members to potentially come out with that.
Why not?
Well, some people will.
If I did something wrong, if I misquoted it.
Well, some people will, and some people won't. Some people have, the personality. Some people have the platform. Ziva has a bunch of followers on Twitter. People know who she is. A lot of people who do research actually are not into social media at all. Like, I don't think you were at all before you had your book, were you?
Yeah, I mean,
right? Okay, yeah, so you weren't into social media at all. So, I don't think that most people on that community are into social media. Ziva just happens to be. I even spoke to Ziva on the phone about this, and she said that I felt that she agrees with everything that was in the report, but she doesn't agree with your conclusions. And to go back to what's you're only quoting the parts that cite sort of that back your opinions. You're not quoting the entire part. Like you left, why did you leave out the part that said they have found an association between marijuana use and improved cognitive outcomes in individuals with psychotic disorders, right? So you're leaving out that part. So why did you leave that part out?
If you can find me a psychiatrist who thinks that it's a good idea for somebody with an active psychotic disorder to use,
why did you leave out that part? Why'd you leave out that part?
Well, my book presents, it makes a case, right? It makes a case that this is a big issue that we have not heard about at all, and the reasons that we haven't heard about it have a lot to do with the advocacy community and the way they've presented this data for 25 years. I wrote a book that is trying to break through a lot of noise.
So, but still, like, to get a balanced approach, did you decide that you were only going to write about things that confirm the belief that you held when you were writing this and what you were trying to push in the title of the book and in the conclusion of the book?
I think that's a really great question. I say in the introduction of the book, this book is not balanced.
Okay.
There's not a lot of evidence in there. If you want to read about how indica and sativa strains are different, and you're not going to read that in this book. But I also want to say this. I didn't come at this, and I say this in the introduction of the book too, as an anti-cannabis crusader. In fact, when my wife said to me, and she said to me over and over again in 2014 and 15 and 16, these are the cases that I'm seeing. These are the terrible things that people are doing after cannabis use. I sort of said to her, first of all, why do I always have to hear about this at the dinner table? Mm-hmm. But more importantly, why is it that maybe these people are using other drugs? Maybe you're seeing a slice of the population that's not representative. Why is it that I should believe this? This sounds like reefer madness to me. And ultimately, my wife, who's the one who went to, she actually, as I was talking to Dr. Hart about this, she grew up in Newfoundland too. She went to the Memorial University of Newfoundland Medical School, and she went to Harvard and Columbia for her postgraduate training. Eventually she got tired of me yapping back at her, and she said, why don't you go read the studies yourself? And it was that led me to write this book, because when I read the studies, I could not believe the strength of the evidence, Joe.
But you're still, even saying that, you're still seeing positive results that you're excluding.
Again, there's this one sentence, and it's not just one sentence, but there are a few sentences about how it may be that cannabis helps people's positive, it helps cognition in people with psychosis. Maybe not.
Wouldn't that qualify as medicine?
Not if it's, no, it wouldn't be approved as medicine if it's causing them to have other psychotic episodes.
But if these people have psychotic breaks and improved cognitive function in people with psychotic breaks, so wouldn't that be something that you would prescribe to someone?
No. Again, you need to think about how the FDA is looking at medicine.
No, I understand the FDA's position, but I mean, looking at it as medicine, I mean, if we could prove this through studies and through some sort of clinical trials.
If it is improving your IQ 2 points on a test, I'm
not
saying it is. I think we'd have to look at that.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure what the exact outcomes are.
But at the same time, it's making you florid. No, it's just. But at the same time, it's making you floridly psychotic. That's not medicine.
Well, it's not necessarily at the same time. One of the things that I read about schizophrenia was that people were trying to make a correlation between marijuana use and schizophrenia, but the problem with that correlation, and what I read, and maybe you can help me on this, was that it's the exact same number that you find in the general population. It's essentially 1% of the general population has schizophrenia, which is 1 out of 100 people. And when you have marijuana users, you see essentially that same number mirrored, and so they're saying that a small number of people. Hold on, but in a small number of people, what they were saying essentially, in what I read, was that marijuana use was associated.
ついに死神が見えるようになってしまったか。
ああ、悪行を清算する時間だぞ。勝負といこうじゃねえか。波動のサ 31石棺風
油断ならん。
任せてくれ。
と隙あり。終わりだ。行くぞ。お任せ。今九十流さん。
任せてくれ。よし。
俺に任せ。
逃がせ。飛び回れ。食らっとけ。任せてくれ。飛び回れ。食らっとけ。玉だ。
俺に任せて。今だ。九十流さん。終わりだ。行くぞ。とそれ。
構わない。ライト。
行くぞ。天かけ竜のひらめき。天かけ竜のひらめき。これが拙者の本気でござる。逃がさないぞ。動くなよ。まだ逃がさないぞ。油断ならぬ。終わりだ。
協力し
やるね。いくぞ。決まれ。いや、逃がさないぞ。もうこれで終わってもいい。竜のひらめき。どんなにきつくてもみんなを守るため拙者は最後まで戦うでござる。
Yellow tape. Yellow tape around his body is a fucking homicide. He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die.
No kisses, can't even post on my Instagram. You pussy nigga be snitching, everybody acting suspicious. Might probably say that I'm tripping when I'm all alone in my jail. I say I like tend to get in my feelings, and all I smoke is that out. Don't pass me no midget, and I'ma smoke all of my pain away, 'cause that's the only thing that gon' heal it. I don't understand you women, you go around pretending as if they really fuck with me, so I love them all from a
onset of schizophrenia. But they were disputing this in this study because they were saying because the same number is mirrored in the general population. Again, correlation does not equal causation, right?
And Dr. Hart, I think you got to tell me that's not true.
So
tell me what that means.
So traditionally, yes, when you look at the stats, you'll see that the people who use cannabis versus the people who don't use cannabis have very similar rates. But getting to the exact rates, so in the U.S. they say that the range for schizophrenia is between 0.25 to 0.64%. Globally, they say it's 0.33 to 0.75%. So, right there, it's apparently lower in the U.S. And the U.S. has the highest percentage of cannabis consumption in the world. And the U.S. also has a lot of people that are using high potency THC. So, I think that we really need to be careful about throwing out the stats like that, because when you do look at the stats that we have, it shows that even though the of cannabis use in the United States, schizophrenia rates have remained the same.
So I have to push back really hard on this. This is one of the great myths that people was in.
Okay.
No one knows what
I'm
psychosis rate is in the U.S.
Right, because a lot of people aren't treated.
People aren't treated. People get different diagnoses at different times. We have bad health care.
こんな奴ら俺一人で十分だ
Country, and we have a lot of protections around mental health. In fact, in 2017, the National Institutes of Mental Health suddenly changed its estimate for the percentage of people with schizophrenia in the U.S. from 1.1% to 0.2%. They did it with no public notice, and then this researcher said, hey, this is a miracle. They just cured 2 million people with schizophrenia. And then, in response to that, the director of the NIMH said, well, we actually don't know how many people have schizophrenia in the United States. Nobody knows. Nobody knows if the rate is increasing. Nobody knows if it's decreasing. The only countries where they can count noses on this with any accuracy are in Northern Europe. They have good health care because they have slightly less protection. They have individual privacy, they have mental health privacy, and so they are able to count cases. And in Denmark and Finland, which are the two places where they've actually done this research in the last 20 years, they've shown increasing rates of schizophrenia between about 1995 and about 2000. And that goes side by side with increasing rates of cannabis use in the 90s. So the people who are saying that there's no evidence of population-wide increases in psychosis are just wrong. That's just possible.
There's other things. I mean, environmental factors, there's a bunch of other different things that you can consider.
We absolutely don't have the evidence at this point to say that cannabis use in the U.S. is causing a population-level increase in psychosis and schizophrenia, which are, by the way, those are sort of different illnesses, and we can talk about that too. So we don't have the evidence to say there's a definite increase. But what I'm saying is that what you have been told, that there is no increase in schizophrenia or psychosis rates in the U.S. We don't know if that's true or not. We just
Let me ask you this. There has been proven that there's an increase in marijuana use. Is that correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
When did the increase begin, and what percentage did it increase?
So there was an increase in the 90s, an increase in use and in potency. Use sort of bottomed out around 1991. And then there was sort of a flat.
Bottomed out meaning it hasn't increased since 91.
50% since 92.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a lot.
Well, wouldn't you expect a corresponding increase in schizophrenia if there was any sort of correlation?
So hold on, let me walk you through it. Okay, it bottomed out in the early 90s. So it increased again, increased in the 90s, bottomed out between about 2000 and 2006. Since then, has been growing, especially let's say the last 3-4 years. And the other thing is that potency in the last 15 years has been anybody can see that. But okay, so what I'm saying to you is we don't know. There is evidence. There's now evidence on a population level basis in those other countries that schizophrenia and psychosis has been up. And there's, for the first time in 2017, there's data showing that serious mental illness, which is not the same as psychosis and schizophrenia, in the U.S., doubled between 2008 and 2017 in youth, and the people aged 18 to 25. And those are the people who are most likely to be using it. So for the first time, there's actually evidence of what you're talking about, which is a population-wide increase. Now again, I'm not going to
get you to clarify. Did you say serious mental health?
So serious mental illness, so this was defined, there's a study called the National Survey on Brain Health. It's done every year for 70,000 people that are government funded. It's a best data source we have on all this. It showed that, and they're not counting cases. No, let me just be as clear as I can. Nobody's counting schizophrenia cases on the national or even state level defense income. But you say to people, did you have depression so bad that you couldn't get it? Did you were you hospitalized this year for any inpatient psychiatric cases? And if you look at those numbers, in 2000, 3.7% of Americans 18 to 25 reported at least one symptom. So they were categorized as having suicide. In 2017, that number was 7.5. So that's a double. So again, I am not going to say that proves that the increase in cannabis has caused this population. But something bad has happened. And if you look at kids 12 to 17, interestingly, they, over that time period, didn't have a vaping. In general, teenagers actually are pretty healthy now, although juul and vaping may be undoing that. And those kids didn't have a population that are increased in serious mental illness.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I think it's better. One of the big ones is Yuval Noah Harari has a great book, 21 Lessons from the 21st Century.
I read that.
It's great. And one of the things they talked about is the onset of social media. Jonathan Haidt talked about that as well. And that the onset of social media, there's actually more Haidt than Harari. But Jonathan Haidt talks about it in young people. Yeah, that's exactly how the American mind. Yeah, I think that social media and the pressures of social media have led an incredible amount of young people to serious mental distress and serious anxiety, serious depression. And suicide amongst young girls has increased some 50%, according to Haidt, over the period of 2007 to I think 2001, whenever his book was written. And I think they're directly correlating that to the pressures of social media and to anonymous online bullying and all these different factors that affect the kids. Yeah. So I think that could be considered a far more significant new form of distress to children and young people than even marijuana.
I think it does it twofold, because I think that what makes people really depressed, maybe more so than anxious, but definitely both, is that when you compare yourself to someone else. And, people, obviously we've done that. All humans have done that since history began. But now everything is online. You can compare your life to everyone, and the people are doing it all the time. And even worse than that, we should talk about this too, is that the income gap is getting wider. So it's like people's lives, not only are they getting better than other people's lives, but now it's on display, so everyone can see it. Whereas before, maybe you wouldn't have seen it because it wasn't on social media, but now it's on social media. So you have this huge income gap that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have people going on social media and they're comparing themselves. And you're absolutely right, especially in that age population. People under the age of 30, they're definitely they could be bullied online. Like I see it every day in my office. Like literally every day, people are being bullied online, and that's something that I never had to deal with growing up. And a lot of kids do have to deal with that. Just one more note too on the. Since Colorado has legalized cannabis, this is important for this subject, this topic. They've actually seen marijuana rate.
He looked me in my eyes and said he was afraid to die. Aizen, Sasuke. Aizen, Sasuke, Aizen. I got murder on my mind, yo. I got murder.